Hi everyone, welcome to History on Trial. This is Dr. Tracey McCarthy. We're going to be talking about some unusual relationships, some correlations between South Africa and America. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at some correlations related to a form of intelligence known as kinesthetic intelligence and also musical intelligence. We're also going to be looking at some unusual correlations related to health dynamics between two groups of people who previously have not been considered in terms of correlation. So there's usually a focus on relationships between individuals in the West, meaning in the Americas, and those who are in West Africa. However, there are a number of things that are emerging that indicate a need to look more closely at some unexamined relationships between South Africa and America, or should we say some South Africans and some Americans. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what this means, this kinesthetic intelligence, and we're going to look at some historical implications for the narratives in terms of history related to the transatlantic slave trade and some other dynamics. And we're also going to be looking at this issue again of reclassifying people with respect to the label of Bantu and Negro. And we also have some great homework assignments for everyone. So some videos for people to look at and dissect and analyze and then comment on or discuss. If you have some insights, you can share those, or some future directions in terms of research that you think might be prudent for people. And as we start our discussion and analyses, we're just going to make note of the fact that there are a number of historical correlations related to South Africa and the Americas, specifically the United States. And one is the dynamic of racial classification. And one thing that is noteworthy is that in both histories, you have groups of people being referred to as colored. And so you see some individuals on the screen who are representing South Africa and this dynamic of being classified as colored. Now let's talk about multiple intelligences. Multiple intelligences come from psychological theory. And most people think about intelligence in terms of cognitive capacity, but there's a little bit more that goes on in terms of intelligence, and there are other ways that people manifest intelligence. And so we're going to talk about this dynamic of kinesthetic intelligence, because what has been observed over time is that there is a shared kinesthetic intelligence between many people in South Africa and many people in the United States. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like and what that means. There is also a shared musical intelligence between the people of South Africa and the people in the United States specifically. Just to give you a quick overview of the multiple intelligences, you have linguistic intelligence, musical, logical, mathematical, spatial, bodily, kinesthetic, interpersonal and intrapersonal, and then naturalistic. If you're not familiar with kinesthetic and musical intelligence, let's just quickly go over that. Kinesthetic intelligence is about bodily intelligence, and it's related to physical development, athletic ability, manual dexterity, the ability to move the body, move in space and in time. It's about spatial intelligence also. So this dynamic of actually being able to imagine things in motion and even the body being in motion. And so you think about things like dancing, and you think about things like playing sports, particularly when you're talking about spatial intelligence. Basketball involves a significant amount of spatial intelligence, where you have a ball spinning around and moving in the air. And so there is this shared dynamic in terms of spatial intelligence and kinesthetic intelligence. And there is a shared way of moving that has been noted between many people in South Africa and many people in the United States. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like in action. We're also going to think about this process by which you have this dynamic of shared kinesthetic and shared spatial intelligence and shared musical intelligence between individuals in South Africa and in the United States. And it's shared in a way that does not appear to be shared with other groups, particularly those who are on the west coast of Africa. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about why this may be the case. We've discussed before the fact that the people who are in the west coast of Africa right now, many of them, that is not their home. And so they moved into that space, and then the people who were originally there were displaced or annihilated, or they were overcome, and then there was sort of a amalgamation going on. But for many of them, they were taken out of that space and they migrated both east and south. And it's presumable, because of the time frame, and this is not really discussed, that those are the individuals who actually went into slavery for the most part. And so that's not something that is really discussed or covered, but that is a great possibility that appears to be emerging. Now, whereas kinesthetic intelligence and spatial intelligence, those things are about movement. This type of intelligence, musical intelligence, is related to the parts of the brain that control things like kinesthetic intelligence, but also it involves things like a mathematical type of intelligence and the ability to manipulate ratios and patterns and scales of music. And you will notice, if you've checked this out before, there is a similarity in terms of the way that South Africans sing sometimes, and also in terms of musical chorus. There's a similarity between that and the gospel chorus that you find in the United States. And so again, you don't see that much of a similarity between the individuals in the United States and those on the west coast of Africa, even though this is where that natural relationship is supposed to be, because there is a presumption that individuals in America came from the west coast of Africa through the transatlantic slave trade. And what goes along with that is a belief that the people that are there now are the people that were there before, or the people who were indigenous to that space, and that also that these people were the ones who were taken up in the transatlantic slave trade. However, there are some other alternative explanations here. And so I just want you to think about these patterns that we are going to be looking at, and you are also going to be looking at when you review the videos. Most of the time when you see maps related to migration in Africa, you see these arrows coming out of the west coast of Africa and pointing in the direction of the Americas. But there's another migration that you also need to think about, and it's called the Bantu migration or the Bantu expansion. Another way of looking at that might be the Bantu removal. And so you can see here on the screen the direction of the Bantu removal. And interestingly, this Bantu removal took place and culminated around 1500. And given the fact that people who were enslaved for the transatlantic slave trade, they were often obtained from Central South Africa versus that west coast of Africa that many people are led to believe. What you have is the individuals who were on the west coast of Africa. Those were the ones who were facilitating and orchestrating the slave trade, but the enslaved people tended to come from the interior. Now, historically, there is always this discussion about the correlations between cultures from West Africa and then in the Americas. And there's a complete ignoring of any other part of Africa when talking about these correlations between Africa and the United States in particular. So what we're going to be doing, though, is we're going to be looking at some correlations related to culture that are often ignored. And one part of culture is dance. And so you have dance not only being part of culture, but also being part of kinesthetic intelligence. And what has been noted is that individuals in the United States, there's a tendency to move in a particular way when dancing. And that movement is not necessarily readily shared with individuals who are on the west coast of Africa. What you, however, see is that there is a greater similarity between the movements of those who are in South Africa, parts of South Africa, and the United States historically. And so we're going to be looking at some depictions, but what I want you to do is actually look at the actual videos. And so the links for that will be down below, and you can actually look at the videos and check out the dancing for yourself. And so these are South African children, and some of the videos are titled, Kids Can Dance, School Kids Can Dance, South African School Kids Can Dance. And so you're going to check them out for yourself and see if you can also note this shared kinesthetic intelligence. And here we have another screenshot of the children dancing in the playground. Here you see another depiction. This is interesting because not only are they dancing and demonstrating this shared kinesthetic intelligence, they are also doing ring dancing. So they are dancing in a circle. And so this is also historically a common mode of dancing in the United States. And here are some additional depictions of the children dancing. And one thing to make note of is the movement of the hands, the movement of the shoulders, the movement of the legs, up and down motions, side motions, spinning around motions. And so you'll be able to see similarities as you look at this. And here are some additional depictions of the children dancing in the playground. Now, these are very interesting depictions because these children are dancing, and it's almost as if you were watching Ben Vereen when he's younger. So this sort of soft shoe tapping type of dancing. And so you will be able to see those similarities too. And here we see another group of children dancing. These are also school children. And not only do you see similarities in terms of movement, but you see similarities in terms of timing and motion in general. And here are depictions of additional children dancing. And when you look at this video, you will be able to make note of the fact that the children are moving in a particular manner with a particular methodology. You'll see similarities in terms of tempo. You'll see similarities in terms of stopping and starting. And here are additional children in the videos dancing. And again, you will be able to see a number of similarities. And you might even notice that the children appear to be doing dances that may have already been popular in the United States. Or in some instances, the popularity of the movements may actually be taking place simultaneously. And what you'll notice with these children dancing is you'll notice similarities in terms of hand movements, in terms of shoulder movements, in terms of leg movements, and also in terms of posture in general. And here are some additional children. And with the smaller child, you'll also notice what some people might refer to as a similarity in terms of swag. Here we have another group of children dancing. You will notice a number of similarities in terms of dance movements, in terms of posture, in terms of tempo, in terms of arm movements, shoulder movements, leg movements, and also the circling around when the children are dancing. And here you have additional depictions, and you will also notice with this particular group of children dancing that dynamic of similar swag. And here you see the children again dancing, and you will notice again similarities in movements and also the dynamic of that circling around while dancing. And with the circling around, you'll also notice that the children are pumping each other up in terms of their dance movements. Now I want to bring to your attention something that you might not have noticed. In the video, This is America, you have a number of dynamics where individuals might be thinking that they are looking at an American dynamic because it's titled This is America. But what you actually have are a number of individuals who are representing South Africa in the video. And so here is one of those representations. And so this is that type of singing that choir is doing. It's more of a South African choral type of music. And many people may not have paid a lot of attention to that because of the similarity between that style and what would be considered American gospel. And what is most noteworthy is that the choreography was done by a woman from South Africa, and you can actually see her off to the left of Childish Gambino on the screen. And so it would be on his right in real life. So she is off to the left on the screen, and she is the choreographer. And so she is incorporating a number of dance styles and definitely bringing South African forms of dance into this particular space. And as we wrap this up, you can see Childish Gambino dancing according to this choreography. And again, it may have slipped people's notice because there is such a strong similarity in terms of this kinesthetic dynamic between many people in South Africa and many people in the United States. And so one of the things that I want you to keep in mind when you are doing the homework, watching the videos, is that some of this has just simply been overlooked because the expectation is that you're going to see correlations between West Africa and the United States. And so a lot of things that may be correlated may have been ignored. And so I really want you to pay attention to that and comment on it. If you have some reflections or you have some insights or some additional information that you know about this shared intelligence, please share that. We are going to follow this up with a discussion about some health dynamics that are correlated between some people in South Africa and some people in America, and it might help to explain this disconnect, this health disconnect that has been there between West Africa and the United States when there was an expectation that that correlation should be there. And so this correlation with South Africa might actually explain a number of things. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon.